WPCD is Parkland College's very own educational and non-commercial radio station. It operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and plays a mix of music from independent artists and labels, also known as alternative rock. Also streaming on the web, WPCD hosts an eclectic mix of radio DJs, from those just trying their hand in the radio world to those with an established show format. But let's take a step back to see how one gets on the radio at Parkland College. When you step through the door of the station, you enter the world of radio. Radio is more than just the live DJ. It's audio engineering and production. It's diction.
Good morning. This is G. McD on 88.7 WPCD, Parkland College's very own radio station.
And vocal practice. And don't forget, it also includes personal style. But all of it, every single bit of it, starts with the script. The radio station houses 2 computers specifically in place to allow radio students to develop intriguing scripts for radio. This is where they can gather content for their radio shows, researching the details of their topics, and curating those topics into the best presentation specifically for radio. Topics can include something as simple as the weather forecast, to more complex topics including news and current events. And it can include gathering background information on their very favorite artists. And let's hear a little bit from Adam Porter, who is the instructor for the radio production classes. What is one of the biggest benefits that any student would have by taking the radio production class or being on the radio?
Well, I would say one of the biggest benefits beyond anything else is the fact that not only are students in COM 142 learning the techniques and skills and processors and editing that goes into being a radio producer, but they're actually applying those things that they're learning in the class to a real radio station. So one of the huge draws of Parkland for somebody interested in radio is 88.7 WPCD, which is our college radio station, and all the DJs are students, and the DJs are taking the classes. And so not only are they learning about it in the classroom and doing projects that they're getting grades on, but they're doing weekly shows on a real station that has a built-in listening audience, and they're also producing spots for the station as well. So, over 50% of the promos, sweepers, PSAs, and other types of productions that you're hearing on Parkland College Radio are produced by students who are taking the classes. So I would say an applied learning experience that goes a bit beyond the classroom is probably the #1 benefit.
Great. And what are some of the biggest challenges that students have in being on the radio? What's one of the biggest challenges that you see students encounter?
I would say probably the biggest challenge of all for a lot of students taking the radio classes is just overcoming that anxiety that comes along with not wanting to mess up, maybe encouraging them to, yes, always strive to be your best, but when we're learning, we can't always have a perfectionist attitude from the get-go. We have to be willing to, dip our toes in the water, maybe go into a situation that might be a little scary or nerve-wracking or whatever it might feel for that particular student. But I think the radio classes here at Parkland not only give students broadcasting skills, but it gives them a lot of life skills and communication skills, and I see a lot of students build their confidence throughout the process of being in the class, and I like to think that the class has some bearing on that kind of, young adults are here figuring out what they want to do, but they're also growing up at the same time, and they're learning new things, and it's not all about just skills that you read in books or stuff that your teacher tells you to memorize, but it's about opening up, being willing to come into yourself, being willing to try new things, and hopefully at the end of the day also have a bunch of new skills and become a hireable individual when you leave Parkland.
The next step is the new studio. This is perhaps the most important stop for the new radio engineer or DJ. This is where they can practice the sound that makes them unique. One thing that is certain at WPCD is that every radio student, and I mean everyone, starts their on-air journey in this very little room. Commonly known as the practice room, this room houses a microphone, headphones, and the radio station's current on-air playlist. Every student practices their radio voice right here. In other words, this is where they can practice the basics of radio. They come here to get comfortable with hearing their own voice on the air. They learn how to do intros and outros to the songs they play during their shows. They learn how to give a fluent weather and news forecast that is pleasing to the ear, and all of their work here translates into a great show on the air. Our next stop is the Whisper Room. Although it's currently named the Twilight Zone, there's nothing spooky inside. It is dark, and it is quiet, however. Its true purpose is to provide a soundproof space to develop promotional radio spots or other productions that must sound perfect before they head onto the air. Our next stop is the production studio. This room is much larger because it serves multiple purposes. It's a great spot to host guests on a pre-produced show or to spread out while working on a pre-production. And this production room is the heart of what you hear on the radio or even on the web. Songs are added into the playlist primarily from this room, and most podcasts are developed right here. Most of the promotional spots you hear are developed in this very room using the latest in audio software and equipment. Incorporating music and sound makes every radio production sound great, and this very room is often where that is accomplished. Next up is the radio station lobby. You'll often find students milling about, discussing radio ideas. You'll even find a guest or two waiting to be featured on the radio broadcast. If you look carefully, you'll also see much memorabilia representing the 40 years WPCD has been on the air. The station just celebrated their 40th anniversary in the spring, and there's a lot here to prove that it is definitely a mature radio station. From posters highlighting radio dramas, to pictures of DJs from years past, to awards, the station is a great spot to see where radio has been and where it's going. Radio is here to stay, and it's growing more important as it moves into formats from talk to podcasts to basically everything you can imagine. Let's hear from a few of our DJs. We'll first hear from Zach Coffin.
So what makes you interested in being a DJ?
Well, ever since my junior year of high school, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and we had a big English paper to come up with. I was still trying to decide, because it was on our career of our choice. It wasn't until I was listening to radio that a light bulb blinked. It's like, I should go on radio. I've been told I have a decent voice, and since then it's just been perfect.
That's great. And what's your favorite genre of music to play?
Personally, although since we're an alternative format here at WPC, my favorite genres are rock and heavy metal, but a lot of that, of course, won't really be allowed on here because I feel like there's times the radio director would come and be like, "What on earth was that?" But a lot of it's just really good.
What's the most challenging thing about being on the radio?
Well, when you first go on, that's where it gets a little nerve-wracking because you don't really know what you're doing or stuff. Even though you have that little bit of experience, it's just, you're being live for over thousands of people or so you don't really know. But after the first shift, the very first one, after that it just gets very easy.
Very nice. And what advice would you give a new DJ?
Well, advice I would give: be yourself first off. Don't try to be someone you're not. Basically who you are. Don't be nervous, and just be committed. It's absolutely fun.
Great. Thank you so much, Zach.
Now let's hear from Joel Middleton. Joel, I have some of the same questions for you. What do you like most about being on the radio?
Being on the radio is actually pretty awesome. Not only do you get to kind of express yourself on air to other people, but you also get to just have, it's like kind of a live audience, but not only are you just talking to them and you can't see them, but it's still like talking to someone about what you like the most. So
That's cool. And what do you think is the most challenging part of being on the radio for you? For anybody?
I think definitely the most challenging part is preparing for it, because not only do you have to know what you're saying and what you're going to talk about on your show, but you have to pinpoint exactly all the words you want to say so you don't mess up. And dealing with a mess up is also probably the second hardest thing to deal with being on air.
Yeah, great. And then give me, what's your advice for a new DJ? What would you recommend that they do?
Being a new DJ, just calm down, relax. It's okay to mess up. Adam, the radio instructor, always says that you should slow down, take your time. If you mess up, then that's not a big deal. Everyone messes up on their first time doing it. So just relax and basically think about, make it feel like as if you're talking to someone you know really well. It's kind of like that. That's how that helps a lot when talking on air. So.
Let's hear a bit from Dean Geiken, the radio station's director.
What are some of the challenges that DJs have being on the radio?
Well, one of the first things is getting over their nerves. They see all of those buttons and all those lights and all those dials and everything, and that kind of intimidates them, and they shouldn't be afraid of the technology. So it takes a little bit of time for them to get over that technological fear. And then I would say, coupled with that is when that on-air light goes on, they know that they're talking to real-life people who are listening to them and wanting to be entertained or informed in some way, shape, or form. And that's a big responsibility, and I think that just makes them really nervous, and that's probably one of their biggest obstacles.
What's one of the benefits of being on the radio for any student?
For any student, it develops you, it creates for you an ability to speak more quickly, kind of think on your feet. You're a little bit more eloquent, and you just can kind of be creative in a sense. Take those loves that you have and kind of bring them to the listening audience. And then at the same time, you are also providing the listening audience with some information. So at the same time, it's kind of rewarding in that same sense.
So as you can see, the radio station here at WPCD 88.7, Parkland College's own radio station, is a fabulous place to be a student and to grow in your communication skills. Radio is here to stay, and it's growing more important as it moves into formats from talk to podcast to everything you can imagine. Once again, radio is here to stay, and Parkland College is setting their students on the cutting edge.